Sexual assault is a devastating crime, and every allegation needs to be taken seriously. But what happens when the accused are innocent? What happens when lives are shattered by baseless allegations? On this episode of the Hard to Kill podcast, we're chatting with a Canadian Armed Forces member and his lawyer about the baseless claims that has led to his career destruction and a complete and utter shattering of his faith in Canadian Armed Forces. This betrayal doesn't just harm him and the individuals involved, but the entire Canadian Armed Forces and the judicial system that represents us all. With numerous Canadian generals already being cleared of sexual misconduct in the last few years, it's clear that this issue runs deep. Careers ruined, reputations shattered, and a shadow over all those victims who were truly assaulted. How did we get here? And what do we need to change? It's time to have this hard conversation. Let's dig in. Hi, folks. Sitting down for another episode of the Hard to Kill podcast. I'm talking with JP and our favorite guest here on the podcast, Catherine Christensen from Valor Legal. Today, we're chatting about an interesting case that JP is involved in related to allegations of sexual assault. So I want to chat with Catherine first. She's representing JP in this lawsuit, and JP is actually a member of the Canadian Armed Forces. So that's relevant. And Catherine, could you give us some updates as to what's going on in terms of all the lawsuits against the Canadian Armed Forces, this being yet another, and then give us some context as to what's going on in JP's case.
Sure. So my office is busy as always, bringing cases against the armed forces. We were recently brought to our attention that burn pits and black mold that was in Afghanistan has been approved for a claim by the Veterans Review Appeal Board. So I've kind of put it out there that if anyone has, well, all of you that were in Afghanistan exposed to burn pits, we're looking at possibly bringing a lawsuit for that as well. But it also opens the door for the other lawsuits that we're developing for exposure to all kinds of environmental toxins in base housing, base workplaces, etc. So that's kind of a big thing that came across my desk late last week. We're still waiting for a decision on the motion to dismiss from the Crown on the mass tort for abuse of power. Although in Parliament last week, MP Cathay Wagenthal stood up and said about the abuse of power within the Canadian Armed Forces. So it was kind of nice to hear words that I have used mentioned in Parliament with our members of the forces. So that's all going on. And I have cases against Canadian Armed Forces National Investigation Service, CFNIS, and the MPs. There's ongoing public investigations for mistakes that they have made. There's also the Provost Marshal is doing investigations, and we've got lawsuits filed against them as well for mishandling, how they're handling investigations. At this point, one of the public investigations is looking at possibly disbanding CFNIS because they are so bad at what they do. That they're not fit for purpose. So there's that. So before us today is a perfect example of armed forces investigations that don't even follow not only CAF policy, but also don't follow basic policing skills. And the benefit we have here is that we have someone who was falsely accused who also has knowledge of how the police should have been handling it. And though they said that any sexually related charges or investigations would be handed over to civilian police, they're still hanging on to them. They're giving the complainant an option whether they want it to go to the civilian police or remain within the military police hierarchy. And that's not supposed to happen. So they're kind of cherry picking what they take and what they give away. So so JP is here today to talk about it. Very much a false accusation, has had devastating impact on his military career and in his civilian career because he does have both. And so let's hear his story from him.
Absolutely. Catherine, just to clarify, was it not deemed that you're saying they're cherry picking which cases go to civilian police.
Mhm.
Is it safe to say that there was an order that all sexually related cases in CAF have to, like, it's like they must go? Did I hear that wrong?
That was my understanding, but they're pushing back and saying that they're giving the complainant a choice.
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
So that kind of falls in line with the typical way that the Canadian Armed Forces seems to operate, where orders are kind of just suggestions, or it's not really an order, it's a mandate. It's kind of wishy-washy, so
Yeah,
that they muddy the waters. Am I getting that right?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I mean, I have another case. I'm just waiting for the criminal side of it to play out before I can bring the lawsuit. But CFNIS brought charges against someone from before they were even in the Canadian Forces. And the civilian police turned it down. So CFNIS proceeded. And it's all coming up to 3 years. So we're going to get a Jordan application for taking too long. But he's looking at accusations from before he was in the forces 15 years ago. And CFNIS is bringing them. They should have nothing. They have no jurisdiction here whatsoever. But they're the ones that pursued it. So yeah, they've got a real problem in the police service.
Hey there, Hard to Kill listeners. Today's episode is brought to you by Natesto. Did you know that only 5% of men get treated for low testosterone? Low testosterone is a serious health concern that is rarely discussed, especially in the veteran community. Toxic exposure, mild traumatic brain injuries, and terrible sleep habits can all contribute to a rock bottom total T-score. I want to help improve the health and fitness of the veteran community, and that's why I've partnered with Natesto. Talk to your doctor today and see if Natesto is the right solution for you. Let me fill you in, folks. I've written a new book. It's called Harden the Up. The book is 19 chapters of the best actionable intel on how to get yourself fit, healthy, and moving in the right direction to make yourself harder to kill. I get it. You might be on the fence. Why should I buy another book written by a veteran? Well, I'll tell you why. You want to be cool, right? Well, you're going to want to be like all the cool kids that are saying some really cool things about this book, like Dallas Alexander. He's pretty cool. General Thompson, former task force commander at Kandahar. Tony Chapman, Dr. Elliot Justin. Who else? Oh, Tim Jensen of Grunt Style. Not only did he think the book was cool, he thought it was so cool, he wrote the freaking foreword to the book. Ebook and audiobook drop on the 28th of November. On the 29th, you can get your paperback copy at Amazon. Be one of the first to get your hands on a copy of this amazing book and become harder to kill. Peace. Mm-hmm. Well, clearly that's a whole other episode that will likely transpire here, and obviously you're more than welcome to come on and talk about it. So thanks for the updates, Catherine. Really appreciate it. And folks, as always, I'm going to be dropping a link here in the description so that you can go donate to the Legal Action Fund that Catherine so graciously is doing to make sure that we can bring these court cases to the fore, let's say, to actually the public sphere. So thanks for everything you do, Catherine. JP, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. I really appreciate it. When Catherine sent me your statement of claim, I was like, holy moly. The best way I could describe it was a dog's breakfast. I'm making light of it. I'm sure it's not fun for you because this hits close to home because a very close personal friend of mine, one of my best friends, is going through something similar within the Ottawa police. And I've seen it just completely wreck his life for the last 3 years. But now he's getting close to the other side of it. And all the allegations were false, proven to be false. And now he's taking legal action. So when I heard about this case, I knew I had to get you on and share your story. So JP, what brings you to this podcast right now? And if you could explain a little bit the backstory as to what the allegations were, a little bit of the context, and then what are you doing now to get after it?
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, first off, thanks for having me, David. Catherine, it's good to see you. So basically what brought me to where I am now, obviously a false Accusation, but from I've been a police officer for coming up to 6 years now. Uh, Before that, I was a paramedic, so about 9 years as a first responder, and then I've been a reserve force infanteer for I think going in my ninth year now. And yeah, so knowing little ins and outs, more so on the civilian law enforcement side of things when it comes to accusations such as this and investigations pertaining to this. I was shocked and blown away by some of the actions taken and some of the clear charter violations that I swore to uphold, swearing to be a police officer. And with my background, I'm a Canadian citizen. I'm part of a family that served for 3 generations, so I've been very, patriotic with serving my country and being a peacekeeper and giving back. And to see the rules all just disregarded in a sense, from human rights discrimination to severe violations on their charter rights and freedoms to D&D policies not followed. The list goes on. Just kind of blew me away how they had their own agenda, and it seemed to be as if things were more politically looked at due to a series of historical events within the forces, you could say. So thankfully, I had a friend from the old regiment who I served with, who was one of the members in the, would you say, class action there, Catherine, with COVID? Yes. And I didn't want to say anything, didn't know to self-incriminate myself or what, but this is someone I, trusted and looked for advice. And he was, felt for me and said, you got to talk to Catherine. Here's like the best, point of contact. Because I was between, am I being charged? Am I not being charged? Am I, retaining a criminal lawyer when I don't have criminal charges? Like, it was a very confusing process. So thankfully, I was put in touch with Catherine, who's helped me tremendously navigate some of these issues, as I felt like I had no real rights and my life was just placed on hold, almost as if I was, guilty, presumed guilty before innocent. Um, how this all started, I guess I can get into, is in about May of 2023, I went on to my Mod 3 PLQ, which is my leadership course with the Canadian Armed Forces. While doing so, there was an individual, and I'll just use initials for identity purposes. And I appreciate, my identity being protected just because my career has been shunted enough as it is. And I look to further grow and advance in an entire new, potentially province based off some of this unhandling that we'll get into. So in the future, I'm very open in going more public with my identity, but for now, with my current both stunted careers, I have to protect my identity. So I appreciate that. But so I started an intimate relationship with an individual on the same course as me, with the initials Alpha November. And the first weekend that we were given leave for, we all went out as a course. And there was a certain individual with the initials of AS who showed and demonstrated an interest towards, this female intimately, and saying I call dibs on her, whatever. And right off the bat, I could tell something was off with him. He came to me and told me he was SWAT, and I knew, like, in Canada we don't use that term SWAT. Like, I'm my tactical side of things with the police are put on hold. We'll get into later. But I was considered a containment officer. Took my containment course, like emergency response team. And I just knew that term was not a Canadian term. So it kind of made me scratch my head. And it actually is confirmed later on that this individual is a correction officer. from numerous sources who's been, telling people he's a police officer, leading other people to believe he's a police officer when he's not. This individual has a key role in this whole mess, which I'm sure you saw from the statement of claim. Now, this female and me started a relationship. It was consensual throughout, and it lasted, I want to guess, approximately 2 months. The amount of evidence showing the consent on an ongoing basis is tremendous. Where usually with these types of offenses, a lot of times they're laying the charge and letting the courts sort out the mess when there is no clear evidence. However, my case it wasn't just unfounded; it was proven false and malicious, where I didn't even have to go through a court process. Where her statement, which I'm still 9 months waiting to get the reports through the Privacy Act, which is a whole nother can of worms, was clearly not corroborating, and the amount of evidence clearly showed that it was, more than unfounded. Where I know too, sorry, I'm slow down here before I stay on track. So, this individual suspected, this AS individual suspected that me and this female were intimate. He had no proof we were professional. We kept it not only professional, but what's the word I'm looking for? Discreet, thank you. And he was very interested in her and friends and flirtatious towards her, and had already demonstrated from multiple different peers a jealousy towards me. And he started spreading rumors of me and her being intimate without having any proof of such. And it came to a point where I confronted him in front of somebody who witnessed it, and he admitted to making these false rumors of me being intimate with her. It became an ongoing thing. I left for a wedding. Another forces member who's actually in his assaulter course at JTF2 right now. Those dreams are also put on hold that we'll get into after. However, I was in his wedding party, and I came back. And after leave for the weekend, it was very apparent that AS and AN were in an intimate relationship. That was observed by multiple people throughout the course, even instructors who have made complaints to the battle school saying, hey, like, this is a breach of policy. Nevertheless, when I came back, he had a relationship at home with a significant other who he just bought real estate with and was in hot waters from cheating on her, all kinds of nonsense. So he thought the best course of action was because it was very public, his relationship with her, that the whole course knew, was to switch it around and say that I had a relationship with her. So from the female's perspective, not to defend her because it's ethically wrong, she's in a position where all her peers are 30 plus. She looks like she's having multiple relationships at the same time with other people. You can see this really like weigh on her mentally. And, the recordings I'll get into, the evidence I have, like proving such, was just, shocking the road it took. Anyways, it came to a point where further rumors spread of me inappropriately hitting on her. And I can read a room pretty well from my, policing experience and read people. And I could just tell something was off. Like people were kind of acting a little strange towards me. And through the transition of the PLQ course to the ISCC, Infantry Section Commander's course, I could really see people's demeanor change with me. And one night we were all drinking, and I was with two individuals from this female's unit, and I just asked, like, what's going on? And the one guy kind of shut the other one up when he went to tell me. And then he opened up and told me, someone's saying you're inappropriately hitting on AN. And I was shocked, and he basically spilled the beans and told me this all streamed from AS, and what he suspected, as numerous people throughout, is, jealousy and insecurity in the fact. Regardless, Um, so following into the next day, I confronted him, and thankfully there was, another person present because I was quite upset. Um, I kept my composure and talked to him professionally and just said, "Hey, this is what I heard. Why are you going around spreading rumors?" Because I knew where it came from. Like, we've already talked about this. This is pathetic. Um, and you could tell he was lying. He's shaking. His face is red. He's looking around the room. Like, you don't have to be a polygraph examiner to tell someone's lying, right? And I was like, okay. And basically, it was told him and this other guy were like, I would go talk to her. So I went to go talk to her. Before I did, he's already in her ear. They're sitting at a table, and he sees me, and he's all like agitated. He's just got some mental issues to some point or another. But I go and speak with this female, and you can tell she's quite upset. She's embarrassed. She's, voicing some of this. I said, these are the concerns that were brought to my attention. I'm shocked. There was nothing, inappropriate in that nature. And she agreed and said, no, there wasn't anything like that. Denied it all. She said she's embarrassed. There's with personal stuff going on back home, with being the center of rumors and such. And previously she denied her relationship with him, but it was very clear to everyone on course, including myself, from observations, that they were intimate. Regardless, I ended the relationship with her, and I go back to the barracks. And sometime after a few hours, a staff member comes in, a master corporal, and he's like, "Hey, women, all the women out, and all the men, they're staying put." And you could just tell by the nature of, that, like, something seriously wrong was said. And I was pretty shocked. And I remember talking to a buddy of mine who's on course, and he witnessed a lot of stuff on this. And he's like, I said, something's happening. And he's like, no, don't jump to conclusions. And I said, DB, I'm like, yeah, something's happening here, like some kind of false complaint, I can tell. And before that master corporal came in, that female and that male AS were gone for a significant amount of time, for like hours. And it was confirmed later on that this individual, the male AS, called the NCO on duty and reported basically a false sexual assault accusation. Now, I didn't know this at all. Like, I didn't learn this till months later, which is we'll get into. But I could tell by the nature it was something serious. Now,
can I just pause you right there? I want to clarify a few things. Okay, so I can only go so far in a conversation before my infantry brain kicks in. So I don't know if you got it as well, but let's just look at the timeline here, because I'm hearing this sounds like a telenovela, like from Mexico episode, but it's real life. So if I understand correctly, you're on course. You start a casual relationship with one of the course members. That's AN. You start, seeing each other for a few weeks, but you keep it super discreet. But then this other dude, AS, muscles in on your relationship when you're gone. So you come back and you're like, what the hell is going on? I got that right, correct?
Yeah.
And the rumors he's spreading is that you guys were having a inappropriate relationship. Did I get that right?
Initially, it was just the rumors that we're having a relationship, and then further on, it was that we were having some kind of, I was inappropriately hitting on her with the words.
Got it. But because nobody knew you guys were actually in a relationship, and you guys are trying to keep it discreet, you're like, dude, what the hell? Like,
yeah,
what's going on?
Exactly.
Okay, got it. And then now it started to escalate, and now we're entering into like cuckoo bananas land where authorities are getting involved. Okay, so let's pick it back up there. I just wanted to make sure I got everything clear.
No problem. Just trying to put the pieces back together in my memory here. So, so essentially, Um, there's fire picket now, so the course is getting disciplined in some point or another. I can tell something's up to some level of degree. I don't know yet. And I can't sleep. I'm stressed out. I know something's being said very wrong about me, like some form of complaint. I can tell what the nature is based off the way they're treating it already. And, I get up multiple times, throughout the night, like frequent urination, just agitated, can't sleep. And, multiple people each time are out of their bunks. And DB actually located this male AS and witnessed him coursing multiple people like a campaign, like planning like a plot, like onto like putting me down basically kind of thing. And the morning time comes and I can't eat breakfast. Like I'm puking in the toilet. I'm stressed out. I'm like, what the hell's going on here, right? And AS, AN, and another individual, which I don't even understand his role in it, which I'm still waiting on the reports. I know he was done up for impaired operations, so I don't know if he was just a police hater or what his deal was. But regardless, they all went somewhere else when we went to another armories to do a qualification of some sort. It was call all arms for fire, just calling on artillery. Anyways, when we get there, I could tell on the bus, and I remember MC, a guy who witnessed later on, this guy who was later on was ordered not to speak AS to AN because it was suspected that he was obstructing police and his own intimate relationship with her. And he
Hold on a sec.
witnessed.
Hold on a sec.
Yeah.
MC is also in a relationship with AN?
No. MC is initials of somebody who witnessed AS obstructing an order not to talk to AN later on and coursing her obstructing police. And he's like, I know, I know who you are. I don't know what it is. I got your six. Like, whatever it is, I don't need to know. I know who you are. I got your six. And that stuck to me. But I remember looking beside DB and just getting eyed down by like four guys. And I said to DB, I'm like, you got to stay glued to my hip here. Because if I get followed into a washroom by four guys, like, I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to knock out all four guys or do my best to go down swinging. But I was very upset, right? So we get into the second armories, and I get cautioned by a master corporal, and I'll put caution in quotations because there's no real caution. I was told verbatim, I'm cautioning you not to speak to. I had to come to attention in front of the entire platoon, not to speak to. Not to speak with AN or her sister. Do you understand? I replied, no, Master Corporal. And he said, what don't you understand? I said, that's not how a caution is issued. I don't understand what's the reasoning for my caution. And then Master Corporal spun out a bit and said, I don't know. I was just told by the course warrant to caution you. Do you understand? Not to speak with those two parties? Okay, I understand that. So I'm getting eyed up by everyone. It's just an awkward place to be. Don't know what's going on. Then I get that master corporal with another master corporal put me on the phone with a course officer. And funny enough, this course officer later learned is actually a law student, which kind of you can see his behavior, how kind of squirrely he is with the whole thing because he knows he's being told to not provide me my rights, and he's odd. Anyways, so he tells me he referenced an investigation, wouldn't tell me what, and says you're subject of a PRB, Personal Review Board, this evening at 1900 regarding a relationship complaint. Now I asked, what's the investigation? He's like, I can't speak on it. It's completely separate. I demanded to speak to a lawyer. He tried to reassure me and go, no, that's completely separate. I said, no, I want to speak with a lawyer. And he tried again to reassure me. And I said, what about representation? Like, I want, someone. And he didn't possess the knowledge of how to, navigate a PRB. So he It's like, yeah, we'll work on that. And I was ordered to shut my phone off. I don't know why, under the media policy, because that doesn't, you know, uh, that's not how it's supposed to be done, from my understanding. Everybody else on course was allowed to keep their cell phones on. So I was ordered to shut my phone off. I was escorted like a prisoner to the garrison where our barracks were.
Hold on a sec. This is spiraling, because I read this, but now I'm hearing it. There has been zero charge right now. There's been zero charge. You haven't been marched into the CO's office, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. There's no charge parade. There's just all the things that go with a charge parade. So if I understand correctly, right now you're being detained against your will. You're having your ability to communicate hindered against your will, and you're having some sort of investigation imposed on you without the actual complainant being clear what it is. And this is all going on at the school, being conducted by, I'm assuming, the commanding officer. Maybe you can clarify that, has ordered this to happen.
The commandant is my understanding, right, Catherine? Yeah, so the commandant of the battle school, which would be what, equivalent to the CO of the battle school kind of thing?
Yeah, that's who runs the school. Yes, the commandant. That's exactly it. Yeah. So that's a colonel. Has clearly made this a priority, and now it's just spiraling out of control. Nobody knows what's going on, and every single right that you have as a Canadian citizen is being broken as we speak. This is cuckoo bananas, man. Okay, so you're being. So it gets better. Okay, go on.
Better or worse, whatever way you want to look
at it. Oh, yeah, whatever. Yeah, better for the show and for the listeners, worse for you. Let's go.
Gotcha. Yeah, and just to say there, like you asked, like clear of the whole thing, like no, clear the criminal code, clear the code of service discipline, for those who don't know, professional standards of the military, and even clear the Police Services Act for any discreditable conduct or police misconduct, civvy side. That's a whole twisted mess, but clear of everything. There's nothing there. Anyway, so I'm ordered to shut my phone off. I'm, escorted back by staff members to the garrison where our barracks were, where our course was primarily situated. They don't know what they're doing. The course staff, like the one that's corporal, the one who cautioned me, you can tell he's like trying to help me out here. I spoke with him like, this is what's going on. Like, I don't know who to trust. I don't know what. And he's like, man, like if what you're telling me is true and I believe you, like this is messed up. Like I'll see what I can do for you. But the rippling effect of shit rolling downhill, everyone's spinning out. Nobody knows their left from their right. He can't put me in contact with anyone. So he's like, if you were say to use your phone, even though you were ordered not to, let's just say I wouldn't be, I'd bat a blind eye to it. But I don't want to get myself in more trouble, so I don't use my phone. I would have loved to call a lawyer, but I was already declined that right. So he's trying to get me proper representation, and he doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't know how to navigate that, him and the course officer. So I asked for, so they put me with AD, which is a different AD. That's a Sergeant AD, who is actually my section commander. And he's the one who was the NCO who got the call from this individual, the male individual. And he doesn't know, like, great guy, but he didn't know how to represent me. I wasn't given a proper, representing officer to kind of navigate through this PRB process.
So hold on a sec. You're still not charged.
Yes.
So you can't get a representing officer if you're not charged. And I've never had an NCO represent me. I've been on a few charge parades, by the way. I've never had an NCO, and I was an NCO. And I can just attest, like having enough experience in the military, master corporals, sergeants, like LTs, even cap, like they don't have the bandwidth to know what to do at all in any of this, because this isn't what we do. We train, we fight, we do all that stuff, all this legal stuff, well above our pay grade. And I'm just shocked that you had master corporals trying to navigate this, because that's not how this show is supposed to go down. It's supposed to be senior enlisted and senior officers. So, okay. So, right. So you're not charged, but you're being offered an assisting officer. In this case, it's going to maybe be a senior NCO, a junior senior NCO. Okay. Go on from there.
Yeah. So the whole thing, the investigation is twisted into this PRB, the battle school tried to separate it and the accusation separate from the relationship complaint. However, I could tell they referenced investigation. It's all twisted together. So that's why I asked first of all for a lawyer, which was declined, and then I asked for representation, like an officer, like which, as you know, if you're charged, you'd have an officer, or even through a grievance process. Now, yeah, I was given a sergeant to try and help me, but he couldn't do anything. Which, no disrespect to him, he's not in a position to do that, right? And obviously, this all comes from the commandant and the shit rolling down the hill. So I'm there for hours. Like, I want to say like 7 hours almost, and I'm have to stay in this. At first, I'm escorted to the barracks, and then the course is coming back, so you have to go downstairs. I'm alienated from the course, so then I'm told to stay in this office. I'm not allowed to leave. Can't talk to anyone. Not to engage with anybody. Have to, asked to go to the washroom. Like, literally, like 6 to 7 hours. I'm stuck in this office. So I'm like, what do I do? Well, I know I didn't do anything wrong, so maybe I'll provide a statement in my PRB. So I said I'd give a statement. Now I go to my PRB moments before. That sergeant was like, "You still don't know," and was shocked. And he's like, maybe, in words, like actual words, maybe a sexual assault accusation. Couldn't verify it. And I was shocked. I go in, march into with the battle school, standards CSM, my sergeant and me. While marching in, I see AS and AN sitting right out front of the PRB at the far side of the table closest to the PRB, eating pizza like it's some kind of game. I'm marching in, and I am spoken to by the battle school RSM, who reference again an investigation. Excuse me. Doesn't say what the investigation is. Now, a key point he says is, whatever I say in this PRB is not admissible, as evidence against me in reference to this investigation, which is false. It was, used as evidence against me. So I self-incriminated myself without even knowing it, even though I didn't do anything wrong. So I gave a statement. Before giving the statement, the battle school CSM, the standard CSM, who knew this was BS from the get-go, he interrupted me right at the start of the statement. He said, "I just want to confirm this is an ongoing relationship you've had with this female for months now, correct?" And at first I was like, why would he throw me under the bus? But I realized he's trying to protect me. He can tell that, the way whatever information he received was a shit show, basically. So I give my statement. I, say like the concern with the relationship with those two people, who I am, a guy that's, I take accountability for my actions. I admitted the relationship when they asked me, even though I didn't know I was incriminating myself. I've never even had a speeding ticket. I'm not perfect, but I've never been written up. I've never been before anything kind of disciplinary action like this. So I had no idea how to navigate through this. And sorry, just to backtrack for one quick second, I had another female on the course, ST, who threatened me on social media platform, telling me, I'm going to cave your face in if you don't leave the Army. And I'm like, what the heck? So before my PRB, I tell my IC this. I'm like, hey, like, this is very offside, just letting you, making you aware of it. And anyways, I give my statement. I address a couple concerns, one being the relationship, the second being the nonsense drama that I was thrown into, that this toxic AS created, this malicious campaign, this rumors, just a troubling individual. And anyways, the battle school RSM, I remember to this day, kind of was shocked. He had a delayed response and was like, clearly this is something very complex that needs to get more looked into. Because I said, if there's anything, any accusation, I want to make it very clear that I can provide recordings, I can provide video surveillance of areas I've been, witnesses, etc., to confirm that there has been zero offense committed. And he paused at the end and he's like, clearly this is a more complex situation that needs to be addressed. And his wording, it sounded like I was going to stay on course. And I leave the room, and the commandant, female at the time there, I can't remember her name. She decided to remove me from course. And I knew off the bat it was wrong. So the first thing they asked me if any questions. I said, yeah, yes, ma'am, what is the process of a grievance in a matter such as this if it's not handled equally or fairly? They all spun out. There's like 10, people in the chain of command there. They're all backs against their chairs. And they're like, whoa. I'm like, thank you. Just want a clarification. And I go to leave. I leave course. My IC tells me to go get my stuff upstairs. I said, no, good idea. I'm not going back up there. So some of the guys come get my stuff. I don't say anything. They're just like, sorry, they had my back, but whatever. And I was told by the course officer, multiple people in my chain, prepare to give an interview to the MPs. I was like, can I just go talk to them? I got nothing to hide. And they're like, no, wait for them to call you. So I go to the Air Force Base nearby where I have accommodations set up, and go there, sign a couple documents. I don't remember what I signed there. I'm pretty stressed out, but in relation to the PRB, nothing like signing my life away or anything like that. And then, so at the Air Force Base, I called my RSM. I said, look, I did have a relationship. I give you my word as a man, nothing more than that. And he's like, we know who you are. And he's yelling. He's like, this is BS. This is not done through the proper procedure. They can't remove you like that. He's talking to a major who's actually my CO now and is a police officer himself for another service, 20 plus years. And he kind of talked with me off the record, having my sixth, shocked on how negligent this whole matter was conducted. So I come back home and I'm starting to spin out. I'm driving home and I'm like, the issues as a first responder from me working in areas on reserves with youth suicide crisis, water crisis, dead kids shootings, getting shot at, all kinds of crap. And this is all, I've dealt with those issues, right? And known to be a hard charger, but it's starting to spin in my brain where I'm like, what the heck is kind of going on, right? Just a mental decline. And I get home, I don't know what to do. So I'm just, I get home and it just ends up getting worse where I, put it in writing. I'm constantly asking my direct chain of command, what's going on here? Am I being charged for something? Because I've heard an utterance of sexual assault accusation. I have zero confirmation. I talked to my association rep through the police side. I'm like, do I have a duty report? And they're like, no, you're not charged. You're not arrested. You're innocent right now. You can't speculate over third party, information without confirmation. That makes sense. So I go back to work, and I'm going, a domestic that turns into a chick making a false utterance. And I could just tell it really kind of messed with me a bit where I'm like, I shouldn't be working right now. I'm not fit to do this. This is a mess. I remember talking, and he's an old warrant officer of mine who had my six there, and I was on the radio and you could hear my voice. I was just off, and he's like, fuck man, you sound distraught or something like that. And next thing I know, I get backtrack 1 second. My apologies. The NIS calls me in July. So beginning of June of 23, I'm removed from course. End of July of 23, I'm called by the CFNIS. And they tell me I'm a subject of sexual assault. They didn't disclose if it's criminal. Is it just a complaint? That are they investigating through the Code of Service Discipline? The whole military legal system. I don't know how it works. I know how the criminal code works, but I don't understand. It's turns into a conflicting and confusing mess. So he doesn't clarify that. I'm not issued a caution. So I'm not told my jeopardy. I'm told I'm a subject. That's my jeopardy. I'm a subject of what? Is this a criminal investigation? Is this a code of service discipline investigation? What are the accusations? Why? And what I'm saying is it, used as evidence against me, like a caution, actual caution. You're not obligated to say anything unless you wish to do so. Whatever you say, maybe give an evidence. None of that was said. And then he goes, yeah, we're contacting my current service to get a statement, demanding a statement from me. And he's trying to intimidate me, I can tell. And I can see where he's trying to go about it, but he's doing it all wrong. Where he's like trying to tell me,
like he's being a shitty investigator.
Yeah, where he's like, your interview can result in your arrest, but he's trying to tell me my jeopardy, but he's doing it wrong. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, that's a conflict of interest. I work there. You want to get an interview from me in my own workplace and arrest me in my own workplace. And he's like, oh, we thought you worked for another police service, which I did before. And you could tell he seemed pretty troubled and surprised, and you could tell he messed up because in some capacity they called my civilian employer and interfered with it. So I call my association president, and I'm like, this is what I got. I don't know what my jeopardy is. I don't know what type of investigation. I don't know if I'm being charged. Like, what's my duty to report? He didn't even know because he's like, it's very vague. Like in the Police Services Act, like there's no real duty of me to report. And with the charter violations, it made it worse where I'll get to in a second. I'm working that day on the road right after that domestic call. My association president calls me and he's like, you got to come back to the station, meet with the inspector with professional standards. They're pulling you from the road. You're not allowed to work the road. And so I go back there and I speak with the inspector. They don't have a clue. They don't know what's going on. The NIS wouldn't tell them anything. And they pulled me from my duties, my general duties for a year. Now, I was spoken to throughout, like briefly. I built a good reputation there in the policing side of things, as well as with the military, where I had a staff sergeant, an inspector. It was kept confidential, but in my direct chain of command, they contact me saying they know who I am and basically knew right off the bat that it was false. And right up to the deputy saying, I know JP, he's a good cop. I 100% have his back, which was reassuring to hear, but not given the circumstances. So I'm pulled from the road, speak of professional standards. They tell me the special investigation unit who investigates police officers for any, excessive use of force or any, or sexual assault as well, accusations. They don't want to touch it. They're not getting involved. It's all the military's deal, from what it sounds like. I'm told I'm to be served, a PSA document, Police Services Act, which is professional standards, just to make sure there's not like, hey, I'm a police officer, do this because I'm a police officer, like in reference to the allegation, which makes sense, but that's not really explained to me. I had to learn that myself.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask Catherine a quick question here.
Yeah.
CFNIS, they investigate things that go on inside the Canadian Armed Forces. JP is a reservist. He is technically a civilian at this point. The CFNIS can reach out into a civilian's life because he's not bound by the Code of Service Discipline at this moment. He's not getting paid. He hasn't signed a day's pay. Do they have the authority to even consider? Because from what that sounds like, that's intimidation. Getting a call from CFNIS, not based on an investigation. You can't say, oh, well, there's a current investigation and we'd like to get some further details. That I would understand as a civilian getting called by, let's say, an investigator from any police force. Does the CFNIS have the authority to go talk to civilians that were on base at one point but are no longer actually bound by the Code of Service Discipline?
No, they don't, unless they're specifically going to call him in as military, and he should have been paid for
that call. He should have been paid.
For that call, he should have been paid.
Sign your pay sheet, JP. Go sign that pay sheet. Because, pensionable hours.
Yeah, and completely out of their lane to pick up the phone and call his civilian employer and say, by the way, we think this, we're not even really doing an investigation. We haven't charged him, but you got a problem officer on your hands. That's basically what they did.
That's exactly what they did. They're
Yeah.
like, we have no case. We have no case against this guy. It's pissed
Right.
us off, and we have political motivations. I'm riffing here. This is obviously editorializing here, but we want him to pay somehow. So although we can't do an official investigation, this is like throwing a grenade into his career. And here, enjoy, bye, and then they take off, right? So no, that put alarm bells up that CFNS could just call a civilian. That's not getting paid and not on the code of service discipline books while you're on the phone. That's insane. Okay, so JP, back to you then. So you got to call your civilian career now. Like they don't know what to do, but clearly they're aware. So obviously they want to cover their ass as well. So what proceeded after?
Yeah, so I don't know the full extent of what conversation that was had from the NIS, but clearly some kind of seriousness in the sense where they deemed it reasonable to pull me from my duties. So I'm put on administrative duties. I'm not entirely sure what that entailed. And, I'm trying to, comprehend all this, right? I've seen my doctor. I'm like dealing with other stuff that I'm confused because none of that stuff really had I never had issues with. Now I'm, not sleeping. I'm waking up to like calls I've been to that never I've dealt with that way. Um, so I realized like, okay, I'm not effective. I'm not going to sit behind a desk and rot. And, in a small service, a small town where people are all going to talk around me and ask what's up. So I was like, my best course of action, and never thought I'd do it, was to go off work. So I went off work there, saw a psychologist, told them the extent of everything. I was paranoid, man. I was like, this is what's going on. Like, I don't want it to look like I'm doing anything like fraudulent. He's like, no, like you're good, man. Like he diagnosed me with PTSD. It's very clear that I wouldn't have had that diagnosis. Clearly, there's an aspect of all that first responder service of almost a decade, but it would have never happened if all this crap didn't happen through the military, where I was essentially defenseless. And that's a state of mind for an entire year that I wish upon nobody. And I haven't met anyone to this day yet, I'd like to, that knows what that's like. And it's like, it's a terrible thing to go through, where your whole life is on hold. Your careers are all stunted. The oaths we swore to, I take that seriously, where my oath with the forces, as well as the policing, I asked shortly after I swore it, to the Queen at the time, to have it, the exact wording verbatim printed off for me. And I still keep that in my Bible cover next to my bed. And like, that means something to me. Then I started questioning, why are there rules? That's not a trick question. Pretty much to, govern society. Now, all these rules are thrown out the window, and they're not like, it blew my mind. I still deal with this every single day, trying to question, my career path with it. But to get back on track there, so I'm pulled from the road. I go off work, see a psychologist, yada, yada, yada. And I'm off. Yeah. Then I get in contact with Catherine, and I'm not sure if you remember the conversation, Catherine, but I was saying, like, this is what I stand for. This is what I believe in. This is wrong. And I want, a lawyer who's willing to fight this through. Like, I'll sell my house, sell my truck. I'll live on the streets if I have to. This is wrong, and this needs to be addressed. And Catherine was very supportive with me, and addressing this throughout. Retaining her has been great. She's been a lot of support for me there, because I didn't know what to do. I'm like, do I get a criminal lawyer and just waste money? Because, like, am I being charged? Because typically, like, they just lay charges with this kind of offense, right? They leave it. It's the one offense in the criminal code that's very vague, and it's, especially with like historical, like, it's back and forth with the Crown. Like, thankfully for me, like I said, there's so much ongoing, like, so much consent, so much evidence to prove where it was. They didn't even lay the charge, where typically the charge is laid. So I'm spiraling out a bit. I'm off work, and I was like, do I give a statement to them? Because I'm like, I got nothing to hide, but I know anything can get twisted and used against me. I don't end up giving a statement. And then one of the guys who actually, there was a night where me and Ann hooked up, and like you can see us like taxi receipts walking onto the Air Force base, video surveillance. The two guys were supposed to be in another room, but they were present in the room, so they saw her there consensually with me. One of the guys knocked on the door and barged in by mistake, while we're intimate, witnessing that, witnessing after, like tons of ongoing consensual evidence. And one of those guys is in the same town as me. And he was interviewed, and I had to stop by the local garrison for something. And he told me, and like, I didn't ask anything because I was like, I don't want to, be looked at as obstructing police. And I saw these charter violations where I'm like, they're really like overdoing their powers and authority here. So I was like, I rushed home. I made sure my guns, which they already were, all locked up accordingly. My AR is prohib now. I'm not going to get into that. That kind of stuff, right? And then I go on, the ministry, and just make sure my Valtags are good to go. Because I'm like, are they going to come in here and kick my door down and like take my guns and just charge me another domestic? Because essentially, like ongoing relationships, it would be considered domestic, which most services, I think, if not all in Canada, is mandatory charges policy. Because there's a huge safety risk. So, anyways, I'm on for quite a while. Catherine, we writes a letter for me to my chief of police. Sorry, backtrack one quick second. Is professional standards gives me the document for the just advising me that I'm going to be investigated through the Police Services Act for any discreditable conduct regarding this. And the wording was, I was identified as an accused of sexual assault. And I was shocked. And I said to the sergeant, I'm kind of concerned. I was never arrested. I was never charged. I'm not an actual accused. So why am I labeled as an accused? He said, my mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Can I get an amended copy? And he's like, no, it's fine. Regardless, whatever. And I asked him, hey, put yourself in my shoes. Like, I don't know what's going on. Can you give me some kind of insight here? So he starts reading some of the emails from the NIS. And he's like, yeah, it sounds like they don't even have a real statement from the alleged victim. So I was like, well, that's interesting. So they're treating me all like this based off the third-party complaint right now. And I'm shocked. And I'm like, wow, okay. And I'm with my buddy and like with Major Crimes, who I went to police training with. And he's blown away because it's one thing, like he believes me, but it's another when your eyes see it for themselves, right? And he's like, man, this is crazy. And anyways, so yeah, it was that. What else did they say? I can't remember the full extent of it. Regardless, moving forward, Catherine writes a respectful letter to my chief, just saying like, here's the circumstances. Like, there is no charges looming right now. There's no facts. Like, here's that kind of thing, right? And just the fact that I was pulled from my duties seemed to be a little unfair. So the no response to that, and then we made complaints to the provost marshal to investigate the misconduct by the CFNIS, who essentially told me they're backlogged with complaints. I was shocked.
It's always a great sign.
Here's a scenario for you, okay? I'm working the road. I'm back on the road Sunday. Yeah, back to work Sunday. I'm working the road. Somebody makes a complaint against me. I've never had any police services charges, but let's just say some guy makes a complaint against me, and it goes right up my chain of command, and they go, yeah, because we're backlogged with series of complaints, we can't investigate that officer, so we're going to let him continue working. I'm shocked, man. I was like, wow. And that went on for a year, if not longer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh yeah.
yeah,
I've got some that are on 3 years. They still haven't assigned an investigator yet.
Okay, so JP, like you still have your civilian, well, your civilian job. You still have your job, right?
yeah,
Okay. Are you still in the reserves?
yeah,
Okay.
for
Uh,
now.
okay. For now. For now. I like what you said about you're clearly a principled guy. I hear you on that. Um, if there's rules, they're meant to be followed. You may not agree with them, but they're there for a reason, and you've clearly devoted your life to service of those rules as well. Whether it's in the police service, whether it's in the military, they mean something. And like you said, like everything kind of matters, right? Like just because you have rules, they're only important if they get enforced. So that's why you need to have uh, individuals and systems that are fair and just. And that's kind of like the whole underpinning of our society. When those rules just get arbitrarily stomped all over, now you have an abuse of power. But if that abuse of power doesn't get checked, now we've got a much bigger issue. So, what is your contention right now? So, Catherine, actually, I'll throw that back to you.
Mm-hmm.
What is the actual statement of claim for? Is it abuse of power to hold those individuals that essentially detained JP against his will, which A is a human rights offense? They held him without charge. Like all these things. Like I'm not a lawyer, but I'm learning a lot from you. It's just like a laundry list of, oh boy, that's bad. Oh boy, that's
Yeah.
bad.
So
So
laundry
what?
lists. Yeah, laundry list of charter violations for sure.
Okay. So is
Absolutely.
it a human rights case or is it a civil case that?
It's kind of combined. One of the big ones is negligence, and CFNIS is not fit for purpose, basically, because they completely botched this. There's also some defamation in there. Yeah, right. So yeah, it's a real combination. And in fact, we just heard back from the provost marshal that they are going to investigate two of the charter violation. They're actually going to. They sort of admitted that there was a screw up for at least two of them. So
Okay, but would there be any consequences for the individuals? Like,
I
let's say
wish.
let's say let's say AS, right? Is there something in Canada for like uttering was it false utterances? Can you be held legally responsible? Because isn't that liable in the States? Like, is that something
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
he could be?
this is a tort in Canada as well.
Oh, okay. So,
Yes.
in terms of damages, that would theoretically be like a monetary damages, right?
Yes, in a civilian sense, yeah.
In a civilian sense. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then like all the way up the chain, like, I'm looking at like the commandant. Like the
Mm-hmm.
commandant ultimately is the one responsible.
Mm-hmm.
It was her school,
Yeah.
so she's listed on the statement of claim if I'm not correct. Correct.
Yes, the second statement of claim against the battle school in particular, yes.
Gotcha. Because not following in the RSM, like you said, was
Mm-hmm.
basically saying like this is messed up. Because yeah, the RSM has probably 30 years experience, knows the books inside out and backwards, and is basically
Or they should.
but right. And this commandant clearly is in the wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
what could happen to her on this? Is it monetary damages? Is it just hey, like don't do that again? Because it seems like this, Catherine, you keep on bringing these lawsuits, and there's money on the table. But since they work for the CAF, they won't physically have to dole out any cash, right? It would be the Canadian Armed Forces that theoretically has to pay that out. So, like, is it going to affect enough change once they get smashed in the nose enough? Is my question. What do you?
That's kind of what my overall philosophy is. If I achieve nothing else, I want commanding officers, RSMs, to take 2 seconds and think, am I going to get sued for this? Now, do I think that a female commandant is going to be punished for anything related to a sexual misconduct allegation? Not in today's CAF.
Give it a year, Catherine. I don't
I
know.
know.
I have a feeling. Give it a year. Give it
Well,
a
the
year.
Conservatives, I got to tell you, the Conservatives are listening, and it's we're gaining more and more attention. And I also know that not long ago, the current CDS is now following me on X, which is never. I've always been blocked.
She's getting her intel. She's getting her intel off of X now. That's good.
Yeah, and now I can respond to her as well because I was blocked when Air blocked me after he couldn't handle my mean girl tweets.
Right. What a shame.
Yeah, I mean it's almost reached the point, Dave, where there needs to be a citizens' inquiry just for the military. Honestly, because there's just so much going. I'm holding 1 million pages worth of bad behavior evidence on all kinds of stuff in the CAF.
Well, I mean, that I think you sent me the news article. I think my friend sent it to me as well. They're 0 for 4 on trying to prosecute generals for sexual misconduct. Those aren't good numbers, and 20% of the senior officers were under investigation. That requires its own investigation because that is, you want to call it like the Bolsheviks, like during like 1917, like revolution type stuff. Like that's insane.
Well, and especially when you look at the timeline where these generals and admirals that came under investigation were right about the time where all this stuff was happening and the government was demanding their loyalty, and they were like, no, I'm not doing it. So, yeah, the expunging of all the senior officers who would say no is very present. But the thing happening, political stuff with sexual assault allegations, is happening at the lower ranks as much as at the general ranks. People don't talk about it, but there's lots happening to absolutely innocent guys down at the lower ranks. It should 100%. Not be happening.
100%. The reason why this is really important for me anyways, I already mentioned, one of my friends who's in the middle of it right now, major lawsuit, Ottawa police. But another one of my friends over a decade ago, again, similar situation, a corporal. And it was right after the Russell Williams scandal, right? So they were looking for somebody and he got pilloried, and the destruction it did to his life. The judge even said, this is the worst nightmare for any guy. I can only imagine, because he, again, didn't know what was going on. The investigation was a complete disaster. He didn't have the money to pay for a good lawyer, and he got hammered. He got hammered for a consensual, normal relationship that ended up turning sour because his, girlfriend, or whatever you want to call her at the time, had another individual, another male, come in and make accusations exactly like what you're talking about here. And his whole life is only getting back on track now. And it was just such a shame to see that happen. And there's no recourse, because at the time, if you said anything online, it turned into, you're a piece of shit, you're a misogynist, how dare you defend the accused, the aggressor. It's like, whoa, I thought we lived in a society where we have due process. There has to be an actual court case. And it turned into such a nightmare for him. And there's numerous guys that I know now that have gone through this, and it's pure hell. So JP, the other point I want to make too is, like, this only weakens the case for those that were actually victims.
Yes.
That were actually victims of sexual assault, and they are going to be less likely to come forward, because if the tide turns, right, then what? Then what? Because it's like, well, we've had so many false allegations. It's a boy who cried wolf. It's like, well, now we've put the whole our whole system in jeopardy. And 100%. Now what do we do? What do we do?
I'd be lying if I said it didn't twist me up, right? Like, my last service, I was asked by a detective sergeant and my staff sergeant to apply for major crimes after a series of interviews I've done with children, sexual assaults on children, and that they were victimized too. And and then I start questioning the whole procedure where I'm in my policing career, where I'm looked at highly and asked to apply major crimes, given courses in criminal investigation training, and the other spectrum with the military police, where they do whatever they want. The other thing you mentioned briefly, I forgot to touch on there, in regards to jurisdiction. I was really shocked one thing that this wasn't, he was talking to my, the major at the time, who's now my CO. He was like, this would be done in a month, not even, like, cleared it up, like, no issue. This had to go for a year. And what we got back from the Crown was that the victim got to decide what jurisdiction conducts the investigation. That's
Oh
unheard
my
of. I've never
God.
heard of that
What?
in my life. I've never heard of that in my life. And yeah, so I got cleared January 2024. The original investigator wouldn't even talk to me. It was the somebody else there, and with the NIS, and he tried broing out with me. He's like, obviously, I remember it very clear. He's like, obviously, as you can imagine, you're cleared. Obviously, saying it twice in one sentence. And I said, what are the recourses for this? I want this female charged for public mischief, which is a criminal offense, leading police on a false investigation. All your time, all your resources used for it. And he related to me, and he was saying, like, yeah, I can see what I can see that. We can definitely look into that. And then I mentioned the obstruct police factor, section 129 criminal code, with AS coursing this person, witness, the point where I didn't even mention there, where I spoke with the course warrant after, and when the initial complaint came in, he asked AN what's going on. AS interrupts and goes this, and he's like, reads the room, like, what the heck is going on? Ask him to leave the room. And anyway, so I tell him, like, this is, like, wrong, like, obstruct police, like, this needs to get looked into. There's evidence coursing this female. And he's like, okay, we'll look into it. They never did. They closed it off. They just, like, neglected it. Anyways, I get clear to the PSA. Finally, after a year, like, I don't know if you ever surf, but it's like being in the ocean and just getting tossed around by waves. You can't do anything. And anyways, I'm like, okay, I can start getting back on track. Finally, go on the offensive, not on the the defensive anymore. And I'm all in with this. Why? Because it's what I believe in, right? Like, why I signed up to do these jobs, right? Why I swore these oaths. And I'm no rock star, but I'm the kind of guy where, like, I'm not going down unless somebody puts a bullet in my skull. So to see this go against everything I stand for, from a Christian religion to oaths I've sworn to service, and like you mentioned as well, big concern is, like, real victims that have actually been victimized of sexual assault. It's disgusting, and it's wrong that somebody nowadays, call what you will, woke society or what, tons of these, false accusations being a trend. Oh, the second I'm embarrassed, or the second, there's some kind of drama in a relationship. I didn't ask for any of that. People can tell you, like, my references are great. I was about to get hired on with another service, in a whole nother process, a whole nother province, just to get a fresh start and to be closer to my mom, to care for her, and polygraph everything, where I was interrogated on this. And I passed everything. Days before getting an offer, I was looked down upon for, having to go off work. Looked at as a liability, when I'm completely effective. And, or for example, where I'm in a pool for containment, or whatever you want to call it. 2 months after going off, the TAC level, like the level one guy, ETU, texted me like, hey, don't need to know what's going on. Just want to know, is it like a short-term thing or a long-term thing to plan? Because word was I was the next guy up out of the pool for the team. And, that opportunity's gone. I'm looked down upon tremendously, both by my unit and both with the police. Like, my commanding officer, I met with him and reinstated to my Section 2 IC gig when I came back. They awarded me a coin, went down Ripley, ran a CBRN range, and just, like, very challenging to be back after not only being treated the way I was, but, like, to see multiple offenses, criminal offenses, and just untouched, where, like, no recourse, no repercussions. Like, I know the Crown for criminal in Canada, and it's kind of sad, where, we used to do, and we still do, sworn statements. There used to be KGB statements. And I remember hearing years ago that the Crown did not want us doing KGB statements with victims because it makes them not want to come forward with actual information regarding offenses. But on the contrary, you're giving them the awareness that, hey, listen, if you lie to police and lead us on a false investigation and it's deemed false, you can be charged for public mischief. Like that's a serious thing, but that's all disregarded. And to see, I heard initially that this female was demoted and charged because in November of 23, I was contacted by my old IC telling me she's found guilty and that she's charged through the Code of Service Discipline, demoted. And then I heard that she's released from the Army. I find out recently, confirmation, none of that happened. She had no recourse. She neither did
I would
the
be
male who was
shocked if
concerned
that
with his
actually happened.
partner he was cheating on, who he bought a house with. There's been nothing. There's been no justice. So I'm like spinning with all this, where I'm like, why, and I last night I was watching some of your guys' interview there with Catherine there. Some of your quotes there, like for example, I don't know if you ever heard of the book "Man Searching for Meaning," and a man with any why can deal with any how. And just the bread and butter of why guys like us or women do what we do, and it's disregarded. It really, I'm at a weird point where I'm not a general who is charged with this at the end of my career, and no disrespect to them, that's really shitty having to deal with that as well. But I'm at a point where I'm like, why am I doing this policing job? Why am I doing this military job? Like how I've been treated, how the injustices, where I'm like, what do I do now? You know what I mean? Or my dreams with SF or other gigs, like other friends I have in those specialties or policing, where it's just like constant stunted careers. Like what I was just going to say, mention there briefly, was meeting with my CO, and he was a major at the time who really supported me, and he told me, he's like, and I told him, I was like, look, I just want to get back in the hang of things. I don't want to be known as a victim. It serves me no purpose. I appreciate the support. And he said, the fact is that whether you want to admit it or not, that you were a victim and these things shouldn't happen. And we have your back. We support you. And went through the grievance process, which they didn't even want to address through the grievance process, which hence the second lawsuit. And said they're going to advance promote me and nominate me for a jump course that doesn't, come around too much for reservists.
In the reserves, yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
yeah. They're like the promise fairy is going to come down and automatically give you that. Please.
So, but it's kind of funny is another guy in my in leadership with me. I'm in my third year of leadership. He just got course loaded onto a jump course. And I'm shocked because I got my OC, I got my CSM, and I got my CO all telling me I'm up for a jump course or advanced promotion. Everything kiboshed. Who knows what the brigade said, right? But I'm not a fool. I can read between the lines. You're kind of like painted a black sheep, where, you're in a weird spot, man. And it's hard to navigate through.
Of course it is. And I mean, everything you're talking about here is you want to call it moral injury. I like using that term. But when the institution that you believed in so much, policing, firefighting, military, these are jobs that you need to swear an oath to. They require service and sacrifice. And then when the institution drops you, then you have this sinking feeling that, oh my God, everything I built my life around is now a lie. And this goes back as far, like Nietzsche was talking about it. I love reading about it. I love learning that this isn't something new, but it's definitely something that our generation is going through a lot more than previous generations, because we're seeing the fabrics that built our tapestry of our countries and our institutions get pulled apart, because now we can shine a spotlight on the things that are wrong. And in your case, clearly there was a wrong here. And when I hear it, I know being in the reserves, how unprofessional a lot of the stuff can be, but the fact that it touched your actual career outside of the military and it's created chaos there. I'm glad that you reached out to Catherine and decided to pursue legal action, because up until a few years ago, until I knew who Catherine was, I mean, for me, and I think a lot of us, especially in the military, we just assumed that there was no recourse unless it was dealt with in the military and went through the grievance process. We didn't think we could sue. We didn't think we could get lawyers. We didn't think any of that. So part of what I hope gets conveyed here through the podcast is that you have rights. You can go find a lawyer like Catherine. You can go fight back and you can right these wrongs. Because if you don't, then you're going to have this sinking hole in your soul that you didn't right a wrong. And feeling like a victim is never great. You want to go on the offense, like you said. So, JP, I really appreciate you sharing your story, man. It's man, whew, like it
The,
sucks. And it
the
sucks that
last
you
thing
have to.
that I was just going to say there was like, what message does it show to the other servicemen, right, or other service women, where it's like they all knew, like the whole course knew, the whole course staff knew that it was all false, and I was treated like that for a whole year. And then how many people who don't know, like me being a police officer, where I can properly evidence gather and know what to say, know what to not to say to some extent. How many people has this happened to that they don't know, like, hey, this is wrong. I can't be treated like this. I guarantee you there are hundreds of people that have had this happen to through the forces that have not known to have this properly addressed. My IC alone, who I mentioned, he told me he's been through with the army, and he didn't know. He gave a statement. It was unfounded, cleared, but he had no idea like some of the stuff that he was telling me, and it's sad because it's like I see it, how policing, and I'm not saying I'm perfect in the policing world, but I see how these procedure that we're supposed to be bound to, right? And that just all disregarded is just shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. So, look, good luck with the lawsuit. I definitely want updates as they come forward. Catherine, any last words before we sign off?
Not really, Dave. It's a busy place around here. I could use 10 of me. And, I would really like to get the Canadian Armed Forces to pay attention and get back on track. Uh, they've spent, they're spending way too much time, way too much effort having to disclose all those documents that we keep. I'm hearing through the grapevine that people aren't happy with how many ATIPs we're pulling. Um, and that they're forcing people to go to the courts. And, a corporal shouldn't have to get a lawyer and go to the courts for being treated completely wrong according to not only CAF's policies and the Code of Service Discipline, but according to our own Constitution. That they put on that uniform to uphold our rights and values. And then it all gets thrown out the window in something that should never have progressed beyond, oh, she complained. Oh, wait a minute. What's the whole story? Okay, it's over. Yeah, it's almost getting to the point of being ridiculous how much the Canadian Armed Forces has deteriorated at this point. And then to ask me if people want to join.
Yeah, well, that's it. And you hit the nail on the head. Like the focus, because it's been moved away from war fighting, which is literally the only purpose of this institution, is to go fight wars, is to go shoot people in the face and defend our country. If you get away from that, this is what starts to happen. So no matter what institution you have boys and girls together, there's going to be indiscretions, there's going to be things that go sideways. But the point of military justice, the way I learned it, is that it's supposed to be swift and it's supposed to be to the point, and then the goal is to get back after it. If you're unable to deal with it in the military, then there is a process where, okay, we got to get civilian military to fix this or investigate it. Done deal. None of this political gerrymandering or ideology that needs to take place here. We fight wars. That's it. Quit complicating things. Quit making it into a social experiment, and you'd have a lot more people happy about what they're doing in their careers, and you'd have a lot more people joining, in my opinion, and you'd have a lot of people that would actually want to kick ass and take names. But hey, I'm not the CDS, neither are any of us, but hopefully we can start affecting a little bit of change by getting louder. So thanks both of you guys for coming on the podcast again. I really appreciate it. And folks, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and do all of that if you're enjoying the content here. More to follow, of course. And don't forget to train hard, fight easy. See you on the next one.